Hello everyone, I'm Adam Wright with Lee Schools TV and I'm joined by Superintendent Dr. Greg Adkins. And Dr. Adkins, it just about marks the 1 year since we closed the schools down, sent students home for the first time due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and we thought it might be worthwhile to kind of look back on the past year. Can you take us kind of behind the scenes? You know, originally we sent students home just for, I think it was 2 weeks, right around spring break time,
Right.
and then it ended up being the rest of the school year. Can you take us behind the scenes? What was that decision process like? Somebody who's in charge of this whole school district, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision, but what was it like being in that position 12 months ago, a very difficult decision you had to make?
Well, first of all, it's hard to believe it was 12 months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty amazing. But it was a difficult decision because there was a lot of unknowns at the time. You know, we were just trying to get answers ourselves. And so it kind of was helped along by the fact that we had spring break, which gave us a little bit of a breather. And then, quite honestly, the help of our Department of Education and also our Department of Health, that helped in making that final determination.
And what were those day to day? I know you were in a lot of meetings, of course, not only with the different departments here in the district trying to game plan what the rest of the school year was going to look like. I know you had to work closely with curriculum and transportation and food services, but you also had to work with state departments like the Department of Health, Department of Education, a lot of meetings all day long. What, you know, can you kind of give us a glimpse of what those days were like at the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, it was very, very hectic, because we did have to have a lot of meetings because, you know, we were in the process of literally having to reimagine how we're going to continue to teach school. So it's not only just about, you know, whether we're going to shut down or not, but also how we're going to continue education moving forward. So we had to meet with all those different groups to make some really important decisions. One example is, you know, a lot of kids depend on us for their food. And so even though we were shut down, we needed to continue to feed our kids. So how could we do that safely? So there's where you're meeting with, you know, really our business services team, food and nutrition services, and then also the Department of Health, operations, because of the transportation components. It was just a lot going on during that period of time.
And can you maybe go into a little bit more detail about just how everybody, not that all the different departments in the school district don't work together on a daily basis anyway, but they really had to come together, right, to all work out this new, you know, never before seen situation that we had to deal with. It was really a team effort, right?
It really was, and I'm really grateful in terms of the amount of work that people put in. I mean, there were people that worked into the night, through the weekend, just to make sure that we could do all the things that we did. You know, shutting down, making sure that we're feeding kids, and then when we started to go virtual to make that happen, I mean, that was something that we had to do very, very quickly. So particularly our academic services team, they did amazing work to make sure that that happened. Communications, you know, with everything we had to put out there and communicate to our community. What our food and nutrition services, which I've mentioned before, bus operators, all of them had to pitch in and make sure that we had to pivot and reinvent education, but make it happen for the rest of the year.
Somebody mentioned to me who had been talking with you about what it was like, is that something that they heard you say was that it was like every day you had to make a new decision that was even more important than the decisions you had to make the day before. What was that like?
Yeah, I won't lie to you. It was very, very difficult, very stressful, because, you know, you're talking about the health and welfare of students and of staff, and you want to get it right. You know, you really want to get it right. So, yeah, every single day you didn't even imagine what the next decision was going to be, but then it was right in front of you, and you had to make it pretty quickly, and not always with a lot of information. So, but again, I did have a lot of people that were very supportive, and that was very helpful.
And you mentioned that health and safety obviously was at the forefront there, but being a school district, we also had to balance making sure that we were still providing quality education for students, right? Can you describe the challenge of just trying to balance those two things?
Well, it was difficult. You know, you're trying to literally educate kids in now a virtual environment. It was, we had to get technology into the hands of some of our students that didn't have it and do that in a safe manner, so you had to figure out how to do that. You had to also figure out how to educate parents and community members that were now kind of taking over in terms of supervising students while they're at home, but also helping the students be able to access the technology and the education that they needed to get. So all of these things, literally took a team effort.
Mm-hmm. So, we get through those final few weeks of spring 2020. Summer arrives, get a bit of a breather. But,
Yeah.
it wasn't really a breather, because
No.
I'm sure you were just as busy during that summer. You knew that fall 2020 was going to be a lot different. Can you describe kind of the steps that we took? Maybe let's just start with creating the pandemic task force. How much of a factor and how important was that task force in getting ready for fall?
Well, first of all, you're right, the work never stopped. In fact, I think, if anything, it turned out to accelerate, because we had to not only close down school, but we also had to turn right around and get ready for a school year that we had never imagined before, and try to open school safely. So we also were doing this in a context that there was a lot of controversy about what's the right thing to do as it relates to this pandemic. A lot of people had an opinion. This was even a politicized event. So what we decided to do was to form the pre-K to 12 task force, pandemic task force. And the purpose of that was really to get as much input as we could prior to making that decision. So we involved parents, we involved community members, we involved students. Obviously, we involved healthcare professionals, and we involved staff, we involved our unions. And we all came together and we started to work through how are we going to reopen schools in the fall.
So we're in the summer, and we had hybrid models in place. We were thinking about going in person a few days a week and having students home the rest of the week. And then the Department of Education kind of threw us a curveball, said all schools have to be open 5 days a week. That probably threw a bit of a wrench in things, and you had to kind of shift gears pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We had worked real hard to try to put together a hybrid model so we could do the social distancing and everything with kids coming to school. So there was groups of students coming to school on different days. So I think it was, there was a Tuesday, Thursday group and a Monday, Wednesday group, and then we were going to be all virtual on Friday. That was one of the original plans. But then, we got the order from the state that said you have to open it to all students 5 days a week. Looking back on it, I think it turned out to be a blessing, because it took some of the guesswork about it and out of the equation, and so we knew we were going to have to reopen for all students. Now it came down to how many students are going to come back and how are we going to do this safely. And so then we started working on those plans.
Now, just logistically speaking, open 5 days a week, but we had to implement a lot of safety measures and protocols in place at all of our schools. I remember at the beginning I went out and visited a couple schools just to gather some video and put some videos together and things, and talking to principals and just seeing all the different things that they had to put in place, like spacing out all the desks in the classroom and putting the signage everywhere on the floors. And can you talk to, I don't know how involved you personally were, but just the logistics of communicating with the leadership at all the schools and making sure that everybody was on the same page and putting all the proper safety measures in place. What was it like? Were all the schools pretty easy to work with? I'm sure it wasn't easy.
Well, the schools were great to work with, but putting it together was very, very difficult because, again, we had a number of unknowns that we had to deal with. Like I said, how many students were going to come back, how are we going to try to maintain social distancing in the classroom, and how are we going to keep track of all that. So a pretty massive effort that had to happen here first with input of everybody from the schools. And then once we had what we thought was a pretty solid plan, then it was a matter of really getting with our school principals, communicating that plan out there, answering those questions from school principals. So it was a pretty intense process. one thing that we had to do to get information that we needed was we had to do surveys of our parents and students to get an idea of how many students were going to come back in a face-to-face model, how many students were not going to come back, because we did have to give our parents and students a choice about what they were going to do, whether they felt safe enough to come back or whether they didn't. Then it came, how are we going to deliver that decision, how are we going to deliver instruction to our students that are in that virtual model. And it became very apparent very quickly that our Leave virtual school model that we have here in the school district just wasn't at a place to be able to take on the numbers. So we had to start with a new model, which is our Leave Home Connect. So that's where you literally had our students still connected back to their schools. So we had Leave Virtual going on, we had Leave Home Connect going on, which is a brand new delivery method, and then of course the face-to-face. And again, that's brand new too, because now we're doing face-to-face in a manner which we've never done before with all the safety protocols that we had to put into place. But
Yep.
schools, they were amazing. Principals were fantastic, teachers and staff. I can't say enough.
Yeah, that was actually going to be kind of my next question, was all these different changes that were put into place, the masks, social distancing. I'm thinking specifically of teachers who had to both teach in person and then, also have Home Connect students. They're teaching, looking at a laptop and looking in person at their students. They really had to juggle a lot, and I really feel like everybody, principals, teachers, support staff, bus drivers, everybody, and the students, cooperating with all the changes. I feel like everybody really stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, they absolutely did. I won't lie to you again. I was super nervous going into this year because you didn't know how this was all going to unfold. We had planned so much, and we thought we had a really good, safe plan, but you just never know until it happens. Mm-hmm. And it happened. It happened amazingly well because the teachers, the principals, the support staff, and our students and parents all came together and did what they were supposed to do. And so the results have been amazing. And quite honestly, you look at what's going on in our schools today, they're still continuing to do amazing work, and they're doing it safely. We're not seeing this transmission occurring in buildings.
Yeah, it's been a challenging year. I feel like we're coming up on the home stretch after spring break. You just used the word amazing as far as just the cooperation and everybody, like I said, stepping up to the plate. Overall, how would you describe how this school year has gone, as challenging as it's been?
Well, it has been just an incredible year. I think it's surpassed my expectations in terms of how well people have performed. We look at our academic data. Our students are continuing to do well. Sure, there's a bit of a academic slide because of particularly, I think, the virtual model. And also, teachers aren't able to do everything that they used to be able to do. But still, I'm pretty pleased with the results.
Mm-hmm. Going back to last year, unfortunately, seniors last year weren't able to participate in, things like prom or in-person graduation ceremonies. I know that wasn't a fun decision to have to make. Did that weigh heavily on you, having to make decisions like that?
Yeah, it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really does hurt because you're making a decision that for many families, it's one of the most important things that happens in a student's life is graduation from high school. And in some cases, we have families where this is the first person who's ever graduated. And so they're really looking forward to this event. They've been in school now 12, 13 years, including kindergarten or even more if you go pre-K. And so much looking forward to this event, and then we cannot do it. So that was really, really tough, a decision to make. But we felt at the time, you really couldn't bring masses of people together in a big arena and have a graduation because we were concerned about the spread of the pandemic.
Now, this school year, those options will be available to seniors, correct?
That is correct. I think we've learned a lot this year about how to do these events safely. We also see, the numbers in terms of how the pandemic is doing, people getting vaccinated. Things are starting to come down. So we are able to do some of these in-person events such as graduation, but they still are not going to look like they used to in the past. We're going to have to limit numbers, unfortunately, so it won't be like a whole large family can come to a graduation. Right now it's looking like 2 tickets per family, but we're still going to be able to do this, and I'm really happy about that. That's something that our high school principals we're just determined to do, is no matter what, we want to have high school graduation this year.
And proms too, are those?
Proms as well. So we think, again, this is another event where we have to put in safety protocols, obviously, so we can do it safely. But with those safety protocols, we think we are able to have that event.
Looking ahead, do you have any idea what next school year will look like?
I think we're getting a good idea in terms of what it's going to look like. I think, first of all, we have really determined that the face-to-face model for most students is the best way to go. So what I think we'd like to see is, again, an increase in that model. So you might see Lee Home Connect go away, because right now we don't even know if we're going to have approval to continue that model moving forward, because that's an innovative model that the state has allowed us to do for just a short time of this pandemic. But as the numbers start to come down, and as we start to look toward fall, people starting to get vaccinated, we really believe that the face-to-face model is what we're primarily going to see. And of course, we will still offer Lee Virtual School, which we have been doing for at least a decade.
You mentioned the vaccinations. I know a lot of people are hoping that teachers can get vaccinated as quickly as possible. How involved is the school district, if at all, in the employee vaccination process?
Oh, we are very involved. In fact, right now, as you and I are talking, we have got staff working on scheduling teachers to get vaccinated tomorrow. So, and this is an effort that's going to continue until we can get everyone vaccinated that wants to get vaccinated.
Okay. And again, looking ahead, I know you had to do a lot of it all over the past 12 months, but just, how challenging is it to prepare for the unknown? Because you really don't know exactly what is going to happen over the next several months with the pandemic. Hopefully things continue to look to go in the best direction possible, but it's got to be hard not knowing exactly where we'll be in August, but having to prepare well ahead of time.
Right. It is one of the most challenging things that I think leadership has to do when you take on these type of roles. It's making critically important decisions, and sometimes literally decisions that impact somebody's health, welfare, even life in some cases. You have to make that decision and not be able to make it with all the information that you would love to have. So that's tough. It weighs on you, but I think if you keep at what's in the best interest of the student, the kid in front of you, that kind of helps guide you.
All right. Anything else that you'd like to say about the last 12 months? I'm sure we're all, it was not a fun year. And we're all looking forward to getting back to some semblance of normalcy in the near future. Any other reflection on the past 12 months?
I think 2 things. One, and I've said this one before many, many times, but it bears repeating, people have been amazing. The people in this community, from our healthcare providers, the Department of Health, even our partners, in the Department of Education, who have really helped us through some of these major decisions, superintendents across the state, Lee County government. I mean, everybody has really stepped up to help our school district operate in a very, very safe manner. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we've learned a lot this year, and I think that moving forward, this has ultimately improved education in that we have reinvented some things that we're going to continue to hold on to, like technology. Our teachers have become amazing in how they use technology to get at students, and students have learned, and parents have learned. So I think moving forward, we're going to be even better at educating as a result of going through this incredible crisis.
Mm-hmm. All right, Superintendent Dr. Greg Adkins, thank you for taking the time to join us today, and thank you to all of you out there who have gotten through the last 12 months alongside us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching.